Welcome to the Graphic Medicine Podcast, the monthly wrap-up. We are your one and only podcast, all dedicated to all things comics and how they interact with the intersection of healthcare, illness, disability, and caregiving. I am your co-host, Alex Thomas.
And I am your co-host, MK Serwick. So what's up, Alex? How are things?
I'm doing well. I'm very excited to be able to talk to you today because something really crazy is happening at my house later this evening, which is hopefully I'm not jinxing it, but I think this is going to happen. My son, my 7-year-old, he's incredibly good at like classic video games. This is something that's been like a skill of his that we identified not on purpose, but he just happened across a Pac-Man machine when he was like 3 years old and was immediately like amazing at it. So then we're like, oh my God, he's good at this stuff. So his most recent thing is I started playing the game Tetris again because they have on the Nintendo Switch a game called Tetris 99 where you play Tetris against 99 other people from around the world like in real time, and you know when you get a line it goes to another player, and so you can kind of like defeat other players. And so it's really fun, and you're playing against like people from all over, so usually like there's a strong contingent of like Japanese players that are always dominating. You can just see by their names in like Japanese script. Anyway, my son, who's never played Tetris before, saw me playing this and was like, "Oh, Daddy, what's that?" And I was like, "Oh, this is Tetris. You should try it." He immediately picks it up and is amazing at it right away. And so he, within like a couple weeks, gets first place in Tetris 99.
Oh my
And so
God.
yeah. And so I'm like, oh my, like, and so I was like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? What it means is that then you get inducted into a higher league called Tetris Invictus, where
Oh my God.
then you play against 99 other first place winners of the first round. So then you're playing like the best of the best on planet Earth. Okay.
Oh my God. It's a pyramid.
Yes. And so then George is doing this and he's like so excited. And I was like, Georgie, if you win, he's like, what's going to happen if I win? I was like, oh my gosh, if you win Tetris 99, you're going to be on the news. This is like, you have to be like the youngest player to win Tetris 99. And he's like, okay, yeah, I'll be on the news. I'll be on the news. Okay. And then 2 weeks later, he wins Tetris 99. Or no, I mean Tetris Invictus 99, right?
Oh my
So
God.
he won this thing. And so like I was watching him play, and the funniest thing when Georgie plays is he's completely not bothered. He's like chit-chatting, like just and making small talk. And meanwhile, these pieces are going like going super fast. I'm like, how are you not stressed out? And he's not. So anyway, I'm watching him do this, and he wins, and he's like, I won. When is the
God.
news coming? Is the
My
news coming
son,
now?
you're right. You promised it.
I
Yeah.
know. So then I was like, oh my God, the new, and I was like, I don't know, buddy. Let me see what let me see what I can do. I mean, it is a big deal. So then I I emailed around, and I had a friend who just had like media contacts. And so he happened to have the contact info of the Chicago Sun-Times. And so I just sent an email to report me like, I don't know if this is a story, but my son did this. And he's like, yeah, that's great. So the Chicago Sun-Times is coming this afternoon when my son is home from school to interview him and watch him play Tetris.
Oh my God. That's so fun. You had me
I
on the
know.
edge of my seat, Alex. That's
Oh
amazing.
my gosh. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's like as a non-athletic video game obsessed child and now adult, this is like watching, I'm sure watching your son get a home run, or I don't know. I have no
My
sports
son's
equivalent
in
or
the
anything about
NBA
it.
now. Yeah. My
Yeah, exactly.
7-year-old son is in the NBA now.
And it's such a weird thing. And it's funny because like his classmates, no one knows what Tetris is. So he's like trying to explain it at school, and they're like, what game is this? I'm like, it's a 40-year-old game that my son is really good at for some reason.
Yeah. And adults will care, but the other kids are like,
I
which
know.
is probably good because you don't want to be like the famous kid in class, right? Like it's better
Exactly.
for
Yeah.
adults to think you're awesome. Yeah.
But it's funny because he also has no concept of exactly even what this would be. So he was so excited this week. He was just telling all his friends at school that he was going to be on TV, and I'm like, it's not TV, it's a newspaper, and I don't know if they're going to do it also, but just
Yeah. Yeah. You're trying to like dial back. Yeah.
I know,
Like,
because I'm like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, there's going to be obviously like other news stories that could preempt the coverage of a Tetris champion, but we'll see. Hopefully
yeah,
he'll make it. But I can confirm the guy is coming today, so that is
oh my
happening.
God. That is so fun. That is so
And
fun.
that's
Like, I love
Yeah.
it. Thank you for sharing that story. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Well,
So what's
reminds
going
me
on
of
with you? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, everything's good. So this is a funny story that you can appreciate, and I hope our listeners will as well. So I used to live 3 blocks from the Old Town School of Folk Music, as you know, because we would meet occasionally because you took classes, right, in
I
drumming,
did.
right?
Yeah. Hmm.
That's how your band formed, right, at the Old Town
Yep.
School. So, for those of you who don't know, in our international, the Old Town School is just a storied music education school in Chicago. It's got this amazing history, like Pete Seeger before, like just this. You walk in the place and you just feel the history, and so I had been trying to learn guitar with one-on-one with teachers, and one of my teachers I just absolutely adored. We get along famously, but I felt like the analogy I would make is I feel like you're a grad school teacher, but I need a preschool teacher, right?
Right.
And he tried, but I said, like, I needed you to start with like how to hold my guitar. And he's like, I don't know, you just hold it. He's like, what do you want to play? And any one-on-one teacher I work with would just be like, well, what do you want to play? Let's just learn that. And I'm like, no, I got to start way babyier.
Yeah.
So I decided that really the only thing I could do was to take a class at the Old Town School of Folk Music. Now I live 70 miles away now.
Right.
We live in Michigan, but there is a train called the South Shore. I can take the train and hop on the Ravenswood in Millennium Park, and I am now taking an 2-hour commute to the Old Town School of Folk Music to take
Oh
guitar
my
classes.
gosh. That's amazing. Who is
Yeah.
your teacher?
It's a guy named Ruben. I can't remember his last name, but he wasn't there last week because he's off in California recording his next album. He's a classical guitar player.
Yeah.
And then the guy that filled in actually, his name is Joel, and he does children's songs. So he writes
Uh-huh.
songs for kids. But it's both have been exactly what he needed to be because
Oh my
they're the
gosh.
experts, right?
Yeah.
Like a friend of mine who went to the Berklee School of Music told me that which is like one of the best American schools of music, he said, um, I mean, this is like a degree program in music. And he said that early on they divide them in two tracks. Like, are you going to be a performing musician or are you going to teach music? And so he chose performing musician. And so it made me realize how intense the skills to actually teach someone music
Yeah.
are. And they're not the same as the skills you need to be a good musician. And not to say
Hmm.
that the teachers aren't good musicians, because they are. But
Yeah.
that's just, and maybe it's the same with comics. I don't know. I'm kind of curious. Like, it's made me start thinking about that. But anyway, so that's my big.
That's amazing. I mean, the Old Town School, yeah, it's amazing. I think, what I started taking classes are like 10 years ago. And, I'm a very much an amateur drummer and I hadn't played drums in like 10 years. And so I had a friend who convinced me to join one of these ensemble classes there where it's just a bunch of other like, you know, adults who like are just kind of wanting to learn music and at various levels and that you kind of advance into these ensemble classes as you learn more skills and it was such a great place to like meet adults doing like a hobby that you normally wouldn't have encountered, like in your like 30s and 40s and later, so it's one of those things where it's like, how do you make new friends as an adult? Like this is a great way to do it. And yeah, and as you kind of take these classes, you meet all these other people and everyone is so supportive.
Right.
So then you kind of have this like built-in audience where like a lot of these classes will end with like a performance at like a venue, like a little like bar or something where you're on stage, and then like all your classmates come and show up, and you all support each other. It's such a great place, and yeah, and so yeah, like you said, like a lot of the people that I met there over the years, we formed kind of bands and have been playing together since, like independent of Old Town, but very much like we all are from that school for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and like one thing that this Joel, I want to say Joel Frater, but that's not his name. But he said is like music is a communal experience. And I really
Yeah,
realized that's exactly why it wasn't exactly working one-on-one. I needed a kind of a group experience. And the cool thing is at the end of even 101, like you barely know how to hold your guitar, they say after class, come for an hour to everyone who's in a class on this floor is actually going to be in an ensemble room and people are going to be ahead of you, people are going to be behind you, but just go. I haven't gone yet because I was like, I have to get 2 hours to get home, but I am going to
right.
start going where they're like, even if all you can do is strum one of the chords they're going to play every 10 bars or whatever, go do
Yeah,
that. And then you get that feeling for the group of music. And so, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because as you were talking, I was again thinking about like, okay, we are on the graphic medicine podcast. How does this connect? Because one thing that you just said really connected me to the graphic medicine community, which is that's kind of the way we are about comics. We all get so excited when one of us does something and has a project come to fruition. And I feel like we come to our conferences to really, no matter what skill level you are, be together and make comics and support one another's projects. So yeah, I think that maybe in some way comics are a communal experience also. I hope. I'd like to think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that part of why the graphic medicine conferences are so meaningful for people is that yeah, a lot of times when you're kind of creating a comic, you're very much in isolation. So then being able to share it and kind of get immediate feedback from people who are reading, like maybe not even the finished product, but kind of giving you feedback of early stages of things. It's all really important, and I think that having like a safe, supportive environment when you're doing something creative and oftentimes vulnerable is a huge thing. And I think, I mean, with Old Town, I don't know if this will happen at some point with you, but they also have no qualms about like, yeah, and now also sing. Like, what?
Yeah. You'd be
And
like,
so
wait,
like,
what?
yeah, and but it's like it's great because you feel like, yeah, okay, this is I'm gonna do it and be vulnerable and do it, and it's yeah, it's a great place to kind of like encourage people to move outside of their comfort zone, especially like once again it's like people who like maybe haven't done either grew up playing music, and so to
Yeah.
learn something new. And that's very much true in terms of like the graphic medicine community, where we are welcoming people who are maybe new to drawing, new to comics, but also like really passionate, enthusiastic about it. And so I think such an important thing about that is having like a supportive environment. And I think like things like drawing together are great, venues where, you kind of feel that community and encourage that vulnerability. And then also like creativity. I think that comes from that.
Yeah, and sharing skills of how to be better, right? Like, oh,
Mhm.
you've got short arms, so why don't you try holding your guitar this way, right? Like,
Right.
same thing with like, yeah, you can't draw hands. Here's another workaround, or here's how you can
Yes.
get better. Yeah, yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And that ties really well into kind of the now I didn't intend this as a segue, ties really well into what we're doing with our guest today.
Yes. So our guest today, who will be with us shortly, is Ellen Forney. Her new book is out, "The Adventures of You: How to Write, Draw, and Star in Your Own Comics." It's an amazing book that we are going to be talking with her about. So she'll be with us shortly. So stay tuned for that. But first, as we always do in our third episode, graphic medicine news.
Yeah, so I've got news from the website. Speaking of drawing together, we are returning this month. We take a summer hiatus, and we're coming back this month, and I'm really excited about it. I'm going to be the host, and I'm. This is again, we talked about this before we started. I'm not comfortable promoting my own work, but I'm going to do this. So one of the
Yes.
goals, I love promoting other people's work, but I don't my own. So one of the goals is I just self-published this book called LB and Me. It's a book. I say that it's a book about Linda Berry, which it's not really. It's a book about me, and how Linda Berry has influenced me. So our drawing together is going to focus on our creative influences. And the other goal with this book, I have a bunch of pull-out pages, or not pull-out, but like you can just copy and use for teaching and for yourself. This one's about what I call filter comics, how to make a filter comic, or like the four-panel emergency comic. So there's about three or four of those, and the goal of those is making comics during difficult times. And a lot of the work that we look at graphic medicine, people have made during or about difficult times. But what I find is like when you're super stressed and you have no time at all, here's a few tips for doing this kind of a thing to help you get through medical school or get through a difficult time with caregiving, whatever. So anyway, so that's what we're going to focus on is in this drawing together, comics for difficult times, and what are the inspirations you turn to and who has inspired you. So that's that.
Well, congratulations on the book. I know you didn't really want to talk about it in a promotional way, but I would like you to promote it, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
and
Thank you.
and I definitely hope we can devote more time to kind of, yeah, delve into it more. But yes, I think this is a good first look for those curious about MK's amazing work. So yeah, hope everyone
Thank
can
you.
join us.
Thank you. You're very kind. So that'll be the 28th. If you're not already on our Drawing Together email sign up list, you can go to the website and just look under Drawing Together and find that link, or you can email me directly, comicnurse@mac.com. Moving along. So, save the date. The Graphic Medicine Manifesto has a 10th anniversary edition. It's easier for me to promote this because it's a group effort. And this is my advanced copy. And there's a new intro, or sorry, a new preface that's really wonderful. And it talks about how graphic medicine has developed over the last kind of 10 to 12 years. And Susan Squire, Juliet McMullen, and Brian Callender wrote that. And we're going to do a launch event online, 10/8 at 3 p.m. Eastern. Again, watch the website for info on that. It'll be a conversation with all the authors and publishers. Um, and Then we're going to we have a redesign that Ben Schwartz, who's one of the co-chairs of the Graphic Medicine International Collective, has done for our weekly newsletter. So it's going to look a lot better this week, starting this week. That's exciting. The New England Graphic Medicine Summit is coming up, 10/24. The Nonfiction Comics Fest in November. And I think I'll stop there.
Well, this is great. I can't wait to get a new copy of the Graphic Medicine Manifesto. My dog, who is now 11 years old, as a puppy, tore into it. So I have little puppy bite marks on my original one. So
Oh, that's great.
you know, he didn't eat it. It's still readable, but it's just, there's tooth marks on the outside of it.
I love it.
Okay, so the news I have from the GMIC board, the big news is that we are looking for a new treasurer. Matthew No, our amazing treasurer, is going to be stepping down as treasurer. And so we are looking for someone that can replace his role, which was an invaluable role with a lot of what we do. So basically, the treasurer is the financial steward of our nonprofit organization. They work closely with the rest of the board and chairs to ensure that everything is transparent, compliant, and accurate. Um, there's many projects that we do that involve payment of folks, and so that's a critical thing, that we do things all appropriately and legally and all that stuff. And so having someone that is able to organize that financial aspect of things is really important. So we have a posting on the website that we'll also include in the notes of this episode. But basically, we're looking for someone with experience in finance, accounting, bookkeeping, especially with like nonprofit fiscal management. Someone with some like basic familiarity with some of those like basic software, financial software and tools. Someone who's organized, a good communicator. Also, just with the bylaws of our organization, that it needs to be a U.S. citizen. And of course, someone who's interested in graphic medicine. So, typically, the time commitment would be something like 2 to 4 hours per month. And also, we'd like them to attend our monthly virtual board meetings, and then periodically prepare like briefs of financials to share with the group. And then the term of this position would be 3 years, with the possibility of renewal. So we'll put this posting up, but we're basically just looking for a short like bio or resume and a 1 to 2 paragraph statement of interest, explaining your kind of relevant experience and interest. And we are looking for those applications up until October 13th. So we have about 1 more month to continue to take applications.
Great. Great. All right.
Excellent. Well, without further ado, we'll bring on our amazing guest. And oh yeah, it's actually time for her to come on right now. Perfect. All right. Well, we are back with our guest for today, Ellen Forney. She's a graphic medicine luminary, for those who know. Ellen, thank you for joining us. And if you don't mind, for those who maybe aren't familiar with your work, could you please introduce yourself to us?
Right. Okay. So I'm Ellen Forney, cartoonist. I live in Seattle. I'm an author, artist, cartoonist, teacher. I'm a mental health coach, and I'm in grad school right now to be a therapist. Probably my best known work is, oh, I had it right here. Oh, yes, Marbles. I'm just gonna, Marbles. Mania, Depression, Michelangelo, and Me, my graphic memoir about my bipolar that came out in 2012. And that's when my I graduated from a little tiny background. That I graduated from college here. This is my timeline. I graduated from college with a degree in psychology. And then I had this early midlife crisis and decided to be a cartoonist and artist. And I did that. Mostly, I did that. I was a cartoonist, alt culture. and then diagnosed with bipolar. And so then that started to wrap into what it was that I was paying attention to. And then with marbles in 2012, my more professional aspect of myself of mental health and comics really wove back together. Those strands were always there, but they wove back together. And so Marbles came out then. That's when I gave a talk at the graphic medicine conference at Johns Hopkins, and I was just blown away. And then since then, my work has gotten closer and closer, tighter and tighter knit with mental health. Put out Rock Steady, my handbook for, I have my props on how to manage your mental health. And all of these links, I think, you said they're going to be at the end. And then I started coaching, doing mental health coaching, and so now I'm studying to be a therapist. I'm really excited about it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And we're gonna get to all of those aspects, but I want to like go all the way back and tell you that I am actually an OG Ellen Forney fan. Like I have Monkey Food. I was 7 in 1975. Like loved that and still do. So one of the things I'm obsessed with. Oh, there you go.
All right.
See, that's like the lesser known Ellen Forney.
Wow.
It is. It was when I still dotted my I's in my lettering.
Oh, that's great. Because we are roughly the same age. And so all of those cultural points you kind of talk about in childhood are very resonant for me. And so, of course, being obsessed with myself, I loved it. I'm obsessed with also origin stories. So you sort of said in just kind of talking about your story, you kind of glossed over, you're like, oh, I got a degree in psychology, and then I decided I would be a cartoonist. What happened there? What's that origin story there?
Right. Well, I was, in deciding if I wanted to be a professional cartoonist, this thing that I loved, this thing that was my expression of, like who I was, did I want to do that for money? Did I want to do that with the parameters and restrictions that would, and the kind of psychological, I don't know, what felt like a certain, at the time, like cheapening of my vision, something like that. And so I decided not to go into arts as a profession. And then I just, I was working on a short-term psychiatric unit, which was really intense. And I was doing a lot of comics on my own, and it just became clear that that's what I needed to do. And it actually came to me as if from a lightning bolt when I was buying a copy, one of the Dykes to Watch Out For by Alison Bechdel collections, and I had a Tasmanian devil on my personal check, and the Seattle has a lot of cartoonists in it, and the clerk asked me, "Are you a cartoonist?" And it was kind of like I felt like somebody outed me, right? And I said, "No, why?" I remember still saying that. "No, why? Like, what did you see in me?" And he was like, "I don't know. You're doing with it, like the Tasmanian." And I realized that was, and then that was what I needed to do, and that was, and I'm whatever. I'm so glad, I guess.
So we have that sales clerk to thank. That's
we do. Yeah, he was a cartoonist. He connected me with a free press, and my first comic, I sent it there, and I sent it to like some feminist mag, Off Our Backs. Do you remember that? MK? And I don't know, Alex? Off Our Backs. And Ms. Magazine, and Ms. bought it. So that was my big foot in the door.
And Ms. Magazine was just coming back around that time. Remember, they had been gone, and then they did this comeback right around that time as well. So,
so this would have been 92.
Yeah, yeah.
92. Yeah.
That's amazing. So did you draw comics like as a kid?
Yes and no. So I'm gonna be a little circuitous with this. One of the things I realized I didn't mention is that my latest book is The Adventures of You, how to write, draw, and star in your own comics. I like stopped my story at Rocksteady. And one of the things that we debated, I guess, is whether you do comics or make comics. Because, right? Like go do comics. I love to do comics. Or do you make comics? Like I love to make comics. And I had do all over the place. You do comics. And and I and make actually is standard. And I hadn't really thought about it. And so, I don't know, I changed it to make, and it never entirely sat right, to be honest.
Hmm.
And I realized later why. It's because for me, if you're making something, you have that end result in mind. I'm going to make this thing, and when I'm done, I'm going to have this thing. And if you're doing comics, you're drawing, you're putting word balloons to your drawings, you're just kind of like messing around, and that's an end in itself, right? Like just like practicing, just kind of doing it. And that was really my idea of what The Adventures of You is about.
Mhm.
It's just kind of like playing with it, messing with it. What's fun, what's juicy, and just like sticking with what's juicy. I don't know, like I'm not an ice skater. Like if you're an ice skater and you just go out there and you're just doing ice skating, I don't know, right? You're just. It's not that you're not. I don't know. It's not the greatest analogy, maybe, but you see what I mean.
Yeah,
No,
I mean
I get
that's
it.
very, yeah, because it's kind of like with ice skating, there's no like artifice, like thing that you leave behind, I guess, unless it's like a competition or something, you're trying to get a medal. But it's like with the like creation of something, like yeah, there is like the act of making it and then the thing that's left after you're done.
Right, which is exactly it. If you're a professional cartoonist and you're making a book, you're creating a book, then you are on the road to making that book. But if you're just practicing, like I don't know, I'm sure Alex, MK, you doodle, right? And like you're messing around with things, you're messing around with your lettering, or like you're writing in your journal and you're writing things in fancy lettering or doing different things. Then you're just kind of like doing it. Like you're doing things that are comics related. Maybe, like when I'm doing my dailies, it's more like I'm doing them. Anyway, so all to say, I feel like that's what I did when I was a kid. I did a lot of
Mhm.
drawing. I did a lot of kind of storytelling in my head, kind of. I didn't do like panels. I couldn't show you like a comic that I did when I was 8, you know, but I used word balloons and I like played with lettering and stuff. So that would so yeah, in that way, yes.
So,
Interesting.
so I guess like in terms of like your motivation for making this book, is this something that like you would have loved to have had as a child that was kind of doing comics?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, I, I would say that um, that's funny. I actually hadn't really thought about it that way. Yeah, I would have loved it. I would have loved it. Um, I think, it's funny as a comics teacher, I guess any teacher really. I'm like I review like what is that like to learn? I mean, I'm self-taught. I'm like I think you two probably are too. There wasn't comics education, so we kind of like figured it out on our own. So trying to figure out what is some of the I don't know, juiciness of figuring things out on your own, and when is it helpful to be guided, to have guidance? Like where are there shortcuts to be like, oh, I never thought about going from one panel to the next, and like the richness of that. Like you might not come up with that on your own from all of your reading, but if it's too prescriptive, then it kind of narrows where it is that the kind of comics that you're doing, the kind of work that you're doing, right? So I'd say yes. I would have really liked this. Um, to liked adventures just because I know it's fun. It
Yeah, I
was
mean,
fun to do. It's like I don't know. Can I just say like I don't know who wouldn't enjoy it.
No, I think that's right, and part of what, that's part of what I was gonna say is, like, I think I would have loved to have this book as a kid because it's fun, and
Hmm.
anything that you make fun, I will do. Anything that's not fun, boy, it's gonna be a lot harder for me to get that done, and
Hmm.
I realized with this book, I have to have 2 copies. I have to have the copy I'm going to be using with students, and
Hmm.
showing, like, here's how Ellen talks about it, and here's Ellen's work, and then the copy that I'm actually going to literally engage with the workbook of this, which I think
Hmm.
just, and even just again, as a little kid, I would have so engaged with like your use of color, even like different sections are, we can't really see it there, but
Hmm.
different sections of the book are in a different color, like, and there's a
Hmm.
lot of breathing space and room, and like
Hmm.
there's just, it really gels with my aesthetic. And I think that it has that thing, because I was going to ask you, like, kind of who are you aiming this at? Because I feel like it is something that would be great with middle grade kids, all the way up to like adults that we're talking in graphic medicine that want to tell their story, but they don't feel like they can make comics.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, the material, well, so far as the organization goes, having things organized is really important to me. To be able to find what you want to find in the book, that was really important to me with Rocksteady when I wanted people to be able to find their coping tools. Like I didn't want them to have to like. I was so excited that there was an index. Like, and so it's really important to me that it not be a hassle to find what you want to
Mm,
find. And also because I think like in learning a skill, the skills in comics, let's say in particular, it doesn't necessarily have to go in a particular order. There are some people who would say you should really start with characters and then kind of like fill in the other parts of storytelling. Some people, like start with the story and then, like because drawing isn't the most important part necessarily. And so it can really in a lot of ways go in any order. So like jumping around and within that you want to be able to follow your own path more easily. um, the material the material is all that I taught college I taught at Cornish College of the Arts for years, from 2002. Well, I still teach but much less now. um, and it's the same stuff that I taught to the college students.
mm.
It's just, this is how I put it, a lot more burping, farting, and exclamation points.
that,
And
that
mucus.
that's what I was
Yeah.
actually, I had written that down because I loved all the booger and fart references because,
Oh.
like, number one, as I'm a father to a 7 and a 9-year-old, so this is their wheelhouse. But then also it's like, part of my work is making like educational materials about like kind of more complex stuff for kids in a lot of cases, and this like supports like the thing that I also truly believe, which is that like kids can really understand very complex sophisticated things if you present it in a interesting way that engages them. And like the lessons in this book are like are very sophisticated. I feel like there's things that an adult who is a cartoonist could learn a lot from, as well as like a kid who is maybe just starting to read comics for the first time. But it's presented in such a engaging and also like non-threatening way where you kind of don't realize that you're getting this like serious lesson in like
Hmm.
comics and panel layout. And I mean my favorite part is the section where you talk about the balance of words and pictures, because that is such a important thing with comics that I don't think is really talked about enough, even like formally. Um,
Hmm.
and you do it in such a great way that, I mean, I'll call it a specific page. It's in the page 95 of the section about I think the chapter is combining words and pictures. And you basically just go through a sequence of like a guy knocking on a door and there's a monster on the other side of the door. and just having like different versions of that balance of like images and text going back and forth, and how like the image, doesn't necessarily need to like act out what the text is saying. And a lot of times when it's the
Hmm.
opposite, it's even more entertaining. Just seeing all these different permutations of that um, is
Can we
so
show it?
interesting. Yeah, yeah. We'll
So
we'll
this
cut to it
is,
also.
okay. Oh, you will. You'll cut to
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
All
I'll cut
right.
to it.
Okay,
Um,
never mind.
but I think, I mean, what I love about it is that, and this goes back to kind of like why I love comics, is that you can compare and contrast these different versions of it and kind of see
Right.
how they, are, work in different ways. And I think that it's it's on one page. You get this like huge amount of information just on one page, where I think that could be like a chapter in like words, explaining all of that. And so
Right.
I love it because it really, it's very complex in a very very understandable way, that you can just like that is a page I'm going to go back to like constantly to just review and read and think about.
Awesome. Well, so here's the thing. So I started teaching comics in 2002. And so one of the parts of my curriculum, or one of the things that influenced me and what I put together was Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. Like just sort of the ultimate, analysis of comics, and but kind of like taking them apart. And then in, class, and we can take those ideas and put them together. And so he has a pretty he was really doing a real like analysis, and like putting names to things like for the first time, and really like, like making very clear cuts. And what I found over the years is that using those ideas, like in this specifically, like the different ways that the story is mostly told in words, the story is mostly told in pictures, that he has kind of subsets of those, and he has names for them that are a little not intuitive, maybe. And so over the years, I kept kind of like, okay, students aren't getting this one. And so, maybe I'll change that a little bit. Like he has different distinctions, in which the way, mostly in words, mostly in pictures, and then the pictures are interdependent. And I stopped using interdependent, because
Hmm.
just when you're creating them, it's not, like that wound up not being helpful for my students. This was all like evidence-based,
Yeah.
uh, and and so for here, I again, like, so for over the years, the ways that it resonated for my students, that they were able to work with it, it didn't make sense to like, here's the scientific way that, like
Yeah.
has been broken down now officially and, academically, um, but how it made sense as a creator.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it is, yeah, there's parts of it that are reminiscent of like Understanding Comics, but I think what's different about it is that it doesn't really focus on like the history and kind of referencing kind of things, or like putting where comics are in like what's the future. It's more just like present tense.
Right,
How am I gonna make a comic, and how do I start, and what are the
right.
things that I need to make one. So it's to me it feels very much more like directed at the reader to like do something in real time, kind of divorced from like history.
Right,
If that
right.
makes
No,
sense.
it's like creating.
Yeah.
When I was first putting the proposal together, I wasn't sure. I kind of It's like, is this going to be for adults? Like, is this going to be, well, that was it. Like, is it going to be for adults? It's going to be for kids. I've done a lot of work. Had done. I mean, Nickelodeon magazine isn't around anymore, but I did a lot of work for Nickelodeon magazine. Some of the stuff in this is directly from Nickelodeon magazine, even reprinted from Nickelodeon magazine. That is where I learned the just like the deep pleasure of doing work for kids, and with the, like the boogers and the farts, and you can write anything. You can just like kind of spin in a way that, like, you just gotta be a little more self-conscious with like doing work for adults. Um, but I mean, I would still love to do something like this for adults, to just be able to really focus on what's the fun of it, what's the juice of it, and let's just go there. And to, kind of like with Linda Barry, try not to be super self-conscious. Don't worry about making comics. I'm not going to talk to you about being a professional. I don't even really get in here a whole lot. I have one page, one kind of, okay, gotta do this page on how to do your lettering straight, right? Just like, all right, if you want to be official about it, let's, like do this. But, very little about drafting. It's just about the creating, really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
but I think those are important. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I'm good.
yeah, no. I was just gonna say, like, that's the one thing, that's the only demand I make on my students is if there are words, they have to be readable. Whatever it takes to make them readable, that's the only thing I'm gonna like get down on
Mm-hmm.
you about. Exactly. I agree with
Mm-hmm.
that completely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because you were saying, like, and my question was, where is this kind of for, like, what's your target audience? Go ahead.
Can I, oh, look, it did the little hand raise. I forgot that it does that now. Um, is about making it legible, because there are two tricks that I've learned that, you just say them and that's that. So for those of you who are teachers and those of you who are like trying to make your writing legible, to separate your letters, like rather than the way you're writing them, how they kind of come together. So separate them so there's a little bit of space in between all of them, and to finish the letter. So rather than T that has a little space in the middle, like make sure that they touch. Like make sure that the forms all touch, and you're golden. So
Those are
two
think
things
things.
I so need.
the other one, I think that it was, it's just important to say, because I think this is something I figured out as, when I was drawing them enough, but it's like, yeah, also like draw the bubble around the words after you write the
Mm-hmm.
words instead of
Mm-hmm.
Oh
draw
yeah.
the bubble first. That's like a
Right.
very basic thing that
Yeah.
like when you
Words
first
go
start,
Right.
you kind of don't even think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
But I think that your book, it's interesting. What I just wanted to get back to is like it belies this idea. They say like you've got to have a very specific target audience. If you say your book's for everyone, then it's for no one. And I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like that never sat right with me. And I think your book is a great example of that not being true. Because you say like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'd love to do this for adults, but like this is what I would use. I am going to use with adults because I feel like because you capture the joy that and you don't dumb it down by any, like you say, Alex, that page is very sophisticated, yet we're doing it in a way that we're like, oh, how fun, I get to see this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I just kind of wanted to make that point of like I feel like this is really something that everyone can engage with and enjoy and learn from. So I want to move us along.
Mm-hmm.
This is a this book is very much of a transition, although you've kind of pointed out that you've been doing stuff like this, like for Nickelodeon and stuff. But it is a transition for us as readers away from the last two books. Is there
Mm-hmm.
anything you wanted to say about what brought you to this? Of like, this is what I need to do next.
Right. Well, I stopped teaching well, not full time. I was an adjunct. My regular classes. I stopped teaching regular classes at Cornish in 2018, which is when I put together this proposal. I mean, I taught so long, I came up with these things. I had a whole lot of handouts,
Mhm.
and I'm a teacher as just part of my being. I mean, that's what, like this handbook for mental health is about. It's like teaching and showing and sharing. And so I just didn't want to just sort of like drop that into the void, or drop that into just like my 8-week classes that I teach, now extensions classes at Cornish, or, like, so I decided that I wanted to put that together. So the teacher aspect of me. Now, I mean, I mean, me is all different aspects braided together. So I would say that there are actually, I mean, here again, if everything is graphic medicine, then nothing is graphic medicine. There's such a value in knowing how to tell your stories. And I think that that is true for everyone, and really true for kids who are, little cartoonists. There are a couple of places that I that I that I like, without saying you can write this about emotional things,
Mm.
reader, that I just kind of like put that in there. Let's see, it's about metaphors, and I think that's um, it's in, oh, here it is. So the making of a metaphor. Actually, this was really cool. Did you know, I was like, the light bulb as an idea, that started somewhere, right? And it was from Felix the cat. It was like when he had an idea and like ping, there was a light bulb. And it's something that we all recognize. It's a visual metaphor that we're so used to that we don't even really think about it. If you
Yeah.
ask somebody, or like what we say for symbols in comics, we'll say like a word balloon, you know, a light bulb. And I don't think anybody has ever asked me, why a light bulb? You know, you're just like, oh, it seems right, right? And so that's the kind of visual metaphor that I think is really strong, that's in comics, that is really satisfying to create. And so for the visual metaphor, I have one that's a troubled person. So this is page 100, obviously. And it's, if you're feeling overwhelmed, might feel like you're on a roller coaster. You might play with the symbols. So I wanted to just kind of sneak in there that you can tell all sorts of stories. And I feel like there are a lot of hidden things in adventures. There are a lot of little details, little puns, little things in the corners. There's one there's the comic The Mystery of the Mysterious Mystery. See, like there's one thing, it's so fun to do stuff for kids, right? The mystery of the mystery. And there's one character who has a bird on his shoulder, and it changes in every panel. It's a little parakeet, it's an owl, it's like different things. And most readers aren't going to notice that. But for the people who notice that, it's really satisfying. And part of that is the juice and the joy of creating comics.
There
Yeah,
was one
what?
section along those lines where like you said, it was just kind of like hinted that you could kind of tell different stories. Where it was, I think it was an exercise where it was like a puppy eats something and it could do like different things. And then one was like, or the puppy dies, and I was like, whoa. But
Right.
it's like, yeah, that like the story can go anywhere you want it to be, and it can go somewhere that's not like, super upbeat. And I thought that was
Right.
great because
Right.
once again, with kids especially, like there is such a buy-in, when kids don't feel like you're talking down to them, and so like, and that's why like a lot of times like the literature that it's really into, or where kids are like in peril in the stories where it's not safe, and I think because I think kids know that like that is true. As much as we like try to shield them in like the media, we try to show them, it's like they understand that the world is kind of not always a positive, place. And so I think having that honest kind of acknowledgement of it is really helpful. And I think it gives kids an idea that this is like, okay, we're not talking down to you with this.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Right.
And the power of, and we've talked about this in graphic medicine, of the counter narrative, right? Like, so if there's illness in your family, the story has got to be that it brings you all together and it's a wonderful experience, even though maybe it
Right.
was painful. But
Right.
if that's not how it went for you and your family, then you feel worse reading that. But
Right.
like a book like Marissa Moss's Last Things is about how illness like really tore their family and it was horrible and it was a bad end and everything went terribly. But yet somehow, you still in like those are counter narratives are really important because like you say, Alex, that's reality. And kids get that and we all get that. And so it's really important for those stories to be represented as well and for us to be able to tell those stories that don't
Yeah.
go what we're expected to be told. Yeah.
Right. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I have. There's another, without keeping holding up the book. There's a plot. The section on writing, I start out with like constructing your story, like all the different kinds of stories. It can be a mystery, sports, health, journey, quest, and then here's you gotta have a hook, and basically, even though you can tell any kind of story Well, I do the 3-part arc, like you have a problem, like you kind of your intro problem, and then it develops, and then like it resolves in some way. And I said, like, but I like really, really want to make sure that I'm not prescriptive. And I was like, other stories are fun, like totally valid. And I made up a story about a pizza bicycle where like, look at my new pizza bicycle. It turns into a rocket. There's a space octopus. Hello. And like that's the end of the, like, that's totally valid story.
Yeah.
But we're going to focus on the other kind right now. Right? Like, like your choice. There's so much your choice. Anyway, so it starts with a teddy bear going into like getting washed, sort of like classic, teddy bear has to go into the washer dryer, and then he's scared, and then it ends in a bunch of different ways. Like it's about concluding your story, and I don't know off the top of my head, it's like bookending and success and transformation and surprise and disaster, success. And I think that is kind of, Alex, what you were just talking about, like maybe the puppy dies. I don't want to kind of keep going on about that one. It is one of the puppy, but it's the 3-part. It's the story. And they're just like really short comics for you to fill out. And you wake up with 2 heads, and they're freaked out, and then what happens at the end? Like maybe they're friends, maybe one gets removed, maybe your choice. And so yeah, there's that one with the puppy, rock and puppy. It eats a rock,
It
and
was
then
just funny
to
because
you what happens.
yeah, because it was just kind of one of the choices. I was like, well, yeah, okay, but it's good because it was treating kind of all of these options equally, where it's like, yeah,
Mhm.
nothing has to end happily, but it's not. I mean, I feel like the book, like MK was saying, is very joyful, so it really captures like the joy of making comics, but it's also, yeah, I think it very much acknowledges that like it doesn't, the story can go anywhere, and it can
Right.
really involve any of your experiences that you want to write about.
Right. And I want to add something about what the experience was like for me of making it, kind of what you were asking MK about, like why did I do this? In having developed this like curriculum and these handouts and stuff over time, is that just like any teacher, every time I would teach something, like, oh, like I do a new handout, and if only I had time, I would do it a little bit differently, or like you learn something new every time. And so sitting down and doing this book, I could actually do that. I could actually polish and hone like that page we were just talking about words and pictures combining, and like, how am I going to do that? Oh, if I do the same panel in a number of different ways. I did that for page design. If it's a grid, if it's a little irregular, if it's super irregular, have it be the same story, so that you can really see the differences. And it's something that you just don't really have time to do generally when you're teaching a class.
Yeah.
Like you're preparing for the class, and you're like, okay, well, I'll teach it kind of a little differently from how I did it last time, and then it's sort of incremental. So to be able to put that all together, super duper duper satisfying. Yeah.
So I guess my next question then is, were you working on this as you were in grad school, and how did that kind of influence things?
Well, it took a long time. Do you remember I said that I was putting the proposal together in 2018? It wasn't that proposal went on the shelf for years. It's been a long road. So I didn't even think I was. I didn't think that I was. I didn't. Yeah, it was a long time ago. I didn't think I was going to be. I hadn't even started coaching yet at that point.
Oh, wow.
And much less decided that it was time for me to be a therapist. Specializing in bipolar is the intent. So it like like some stopping and starting just because that's how some projects start, and then my editor left, and I had a new editor who wasn't, like, she had all this new stuff on the desk, and then the pandemic happened, and then there was just this is like one thing after another, one big thing after another. So the answer is no. I wasn't in grad school yet. I hadn't even thought that I was, I didn't have that plan. And we did our best to get as much finalized before I started school as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did our best.
Yeah. So tell us more about grad school and that kind of transition into what you're doing now.
Right. Well, I'm going into my second year, and it's a 2-year program. So I'm almost. I mean, there's going to be a number of hours of supervised counseling, but so that's really exciting to me. That's getting closer and closer. It's a kick to be a student. I mean, here we said I was 7 and 75, so I'm 57. I'm a fair bit older than most of my classmates. It is a kick. It is a kick to be a student again. To be just like reading stuff and discussing stuff. And in the School of Social Work too, like we all care about other people, and so everybody, you can just turn to the person next to you or someone in the hall and have the kind of pings and connections that are just such a joy as a human in a community that is open to that kind of connecting. And I'm doing a practicum. I'm going to be, doing supervised counseling this next year, and I'm really excited about that. And so, and the pool at the University of Washington is gorgeous. It's like the greatest. So like, I try to convince everyone, have you been to the athletic center? It's beautiful. Do that. It's a beautiful campus. Make sure that, like the School of Social Work is just on the outskirts of campus I'm sorry, School of Social Work, a really ugly building. And the campus is beautiful. So just like walk across campus, like the cherry blossom, the cherry trees are like famous in the area. Like do the thing. And I have a student card. I have a student card that works for the metro.
Discounts, yes. See, exactly what you're speaking to is what I was going to say is like the coolest thing about being a student at our age is like you appreciate it so much. And like even just all of the things you're saying, you just appreciate. You're like, it's almost like, God, I wish I could go back to college because I didn't get how great it was now that I'm out in the real world. It's your chance to really
Right.
But Ellen,
Yeah.
you've like made comics for some of your work in grad school, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Actually, I have some right in front of me. So I mean, one of the things that I have been that has been percolating for me is, okay, so I'm a cartoonist and this is who I am. So I'm going to be a therapist and this is going to be like who I am, and I like already feel like I've been kind of going in that direction. I mean, I thought I was going to be a therapist when I graduated from school. I've been talking with, like, since Marbles came out, I've been talking with people that like divulge really intimate things to me, and want to talk with me about it. That's why I became a coach, so that I could actually engage in those conversations, and why I want to be a therapist, so I can get really kind of like really get in there more with people. Um, so I mean, it's sort of like the proverbial. If somebody asks you at a cocktail party, I don't know who does cocktail parties, but at a cocktail party, if someone asks you what you do, what do you do? And for a really long time, like everything else, like I say, I'm a cartoonist. It's like one of the dearest, most central things to me, and it's interesting, and people are like, oh, uh, and then it bleeds into, for that, what would I know of your stuff, and then I say Marbles, bipolar, and then we get into a discussion. Then it can be a discussion about comics, it can be a discussion about mental health, and that really feels like important to me. So if I say, so what do you, Ellen? So what do you, nice to meet you. What do you do? I'm a therapist. It just didn't feel right to me, you know? Um, like how I'm a cartoonist and therapist. I'm a, like this is something actually, Alex, it's something that I wanted to like bat around with you because I mean, you're a pediatric allergist, you know, and you are also a cartoonist. Very, very much those things. I mean, and then you do all this professional work with booster shot that like that is in there. And just like how I don't know, maybe I should ask you that question now.
Well,
I'm going
I
to
mean, I think
interrupt
that
myself and
well, I think I mean, like MK as well. I think that graphic medicine, I think, well, encourages multi-hyphenate type people. so,
hmm
so I think we're
hmm
all kind of multiple things by just kind of how we came to this kind of, field.
right.
Um, so it's very funny because I feel like I'm almost the opposite, where I, am now, feeling more comfortable to talk about being a cartoonist if someone would ask me at a cocktail party rather than, hey, yeah, I'm a pediatrician or whatever. So it's
hmm
almost like we're in inverse kind of relationships to our jobs. But yeah, I don't know. I think for me, they're very much tied to each other. So I think, in a cocktail party situation, I probably would end up mentioning both things eventually.
Right,
Um,
right.
and so for me, I think, you have obviously a lot to say about both, but I think, if you're working as a therapist, that is what you are. And then you also are a cartoonist. Yeah.
Well, so I thought so. Okay, so they relate, and you use a hyphen if possible, kind of. So I've been thinking about
Yeah.
how they come together. How do they come together for me in me? And I've been figuring that out. And one of the things is that I've brought comics I've brought comics into my coaching, and maybe that's a link. Maybe my coaching page is Rocksteady Coach. I have a newsletter, and it's a page of my mental health comics and newsletter called The Mind Reels. So you can sign up for my newsletter.
Link in the
And
show notes.
hmm,
Link in the show notes.
link in the show notes. And so I have comics about mental health that I'm doing kind of like here and there, and like maybe sometime if there are enough, I'll collect them, or collect them plus something else. So there's that comics about mental health. I was super stoked to have that opportunity in grad school when we were doing, let's see, it was macro. So there's micro individuals, meso, which is like groups and maybe small organizations, and then macro is like advocacy and policy and like more outward that way. And so it was a macro class. Policy, I don't remember the exact name. Sorry, UW. I don't remember the exact name of the class, but we had to do something about policy and come up with a particular policy that we wanted to focus on and kind of research that. And then we did a paper, and then gave a 3-minute presentation on like you're addressing town hall, like you're addressing the town, like city council. So how like people have 3 minutes, like I'm so and so, I'm from such and such an organization, and I'm going to organize my argument this way. I want you to like stop this bill for these reasons, and so I decided to do mine as a comic. So my advocacy was around polypharmacy. It's such a problem in mental health when people are prescribed too many meds. I mean, the mental health care. I mean, like like at this point, it's almost hard to see how anyone gets better, really, without a whole lot of resources outside of the healthcare system. I mean, and so like, how do you tap in there? I mean, that's one of the things that that I do as a coach, like, okay, you know, like, I know it's frustrating. Here's what we have to work with. Let's just be like, "Grr," and then figure out, okay, so what are we going to do? And so there's a lot of self-advocacy that has to happen, like, for us to be healthy. Like, we can throw rocks at the system as much as we want, but, you know, like, you know, we're taking care of ourselves ultimately, and our communities, you know, helping each other. So, so mine, and when I was deciding what to do, I got an email. I still get a lot of emails from Marbles readers. A lot. It's really heartening and gives me a lot of sense of reason and purpose, mission and purpose. She was a graphic designer, artist, graphic designer, who was in her early 20s. She was on 4 medications. 3 of them were mood stabilizers. 2 of them were antipsychotics. And one of them was for anxiety. And she had just started another medication for side effects. And it's just, you know, it's just, so I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing my paper on. And so it's as an issue, to present it as an issue that's a problem. And it's, you know, I looked up a lot of studies. It's counterproductive. I mean, it's one of the reasons that people go off of their meds. It's not, you know, like, non-compliant or non-adherent, or it's those things, but it's also like, if people are foggy and they can't do, oh, that was the thing, is that she said that she couldn't do her work anymore. And what did I recommend? And one of them is, do you like your psychiatrist, or do you like whoever it is who's prescribing, who might just be her family practitioner? Because that's the system right now, is professionals who maybe care a lot, but they have this role now of prescribing without necessarily a whole lot of time to get in there, or training, or staying on top of studies about these different antipsychotics and what other medications are they on. Anyway, okay, wait, let me bring it in. So so I decided that was what I was going to do. This is it's a double-sided page that's easy to print out. It's called Millions of Pills. It just seemed frustrated with taking so many psych meds. Are they work? I'm not going to read the whole thing. Are they working, or do you feel like a zombie? It just seems like millions of pills. And I introduce what polypharmacy is, and some reasons that it is that it's bad: liver damage, drug interactions, the expense, decreased effectiveness. And then the next page is things that you can do, advocating for yourself. Like I was just saying, do you trust your med prescriber? Have you researched your meds? Maybe research your meds. Here's one place that you might research. And so you can be knowledgeable when you talk to your psychiatrist for 15 minutes next month, you know? And then other reasons to promote for public awareness, and then different things that you can do. And one of the things is to copy this, and copy or print it out. I have it as a downloadable PDF on my coaching website, where there will be a link.
Show notes.
And you can print it out and fold it in half, and hand it out. So so I did that as for that class. And then, just to follow that up, in spring, we had, in a different class, we had do a project, you know, like do an actual project, get out there. And so 2 other students came on board, and we distributed them to let's see, it actually went over best with therapists. And I think some individuals, but it's kind of a lot to take in, like, oh my God, this thing that I've been doing and investing myself in might be harmful. it's a lot to take in. So it's been um, helpful to think about how that might land maybe a little more easily when there is a person handing it to you who knows you, like a therapist being like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Ellen, just to kind of go back to your question you had for me. So this is why multi-hyphenate people should be more plentiful in the world. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Because I think like the idea that like number one, you have the ability to create and distill kind of that information into something that can really promote change, but also that you like are now in a world where you're exposed to the needs that you may not have been aware of as much if you weren't, in grad school or now, in practice, in the years ahead. And so part of why I think like what I love about graphic medicine, but also why it's not a thing that we should shy from, but it's like important to actually have these additional skills and abilities, and then have the ability to kind of enter these worlds that maybe a cartoonist normally isn't privy to. Because I think in healthcare especially, we are given, honestly, like the gift of being able to bear witness to a lot of personal problems that people may experience that you wouldn't really pick up on, in other fields.
Hmm.
And so it's like, what do you do with that information? You can help the individual, and that's kind of what, healthcare a lot of times what we're trained to do. But then it's like, as a cartoonist, you have the ability to create materials that can extend beyond the one-on-one interaction. And that's kind of where I do feel like I wish there were more cartoonists in practicing healthcare, at the same time, because it's like there's so much work that can be done that can improve things and that can bring advocacy and all of those things. So yeah, I'm just very happy that you're doing all that. It's great.
Yeah,
I'm
and
gonna,
and
oh,
go ahead.
oh, well, well, you go ahead, MK.
So I was just going to say it's a really strong skill set of yours to take really complex things and have really efficient methods of presenting them. And one of the whole I do a course where there's four focus areas of what graphic medicine does well, and one whole focus area is advocacy. And I think that Alex, you're absolutely right. There's this opportunity that we have when we see things and we have a background of exposure to it that we then can translate it to tools for advocacy. And I think that, I made a note that I'm going to print out that polypharmacy as a great example of advocacy. And
Mm,
that I think is some of the
thank
best
you.
and highest work that graphic medicine can do, is to see these challenges that we face and provide patient empowerment. Because what you're doing
Uh-huh.
in that
Right.
handout is saying, a lot of times people will say back to me, isn't that the doctor's job? I just don't bother worrying about that because I think that's the
Hmm.
doctor's job to figure that out. But the truth is, when you have multiple physicians in different practice areas that really are only focusing on their practice area, they're not looking at the big picture of you and the big picture of the meds that you're taking. And so what you're saying is you're giving people the tools to take possession of their care and step up and even just ask the right questions. Not they don't have to have the answers, just ask the right questions.
Right, right. Ask the right questions, and and I mean, my mother is a retired pediatrician, and I know she left Kaiser when when she would have had to learn everything about computers, and and but I remember even there she was starting to feel like, like she had to see a lot of people, and there was a lot of information, and it was very different from when she first started out. I mean, she was in a small group practice, like originally. I mean, that has its own whatevers, but the way, I mean, the way that you could maybe like to think of like the family doctor who gets to know their patients and their families and their backgrounds, like, how's your father, like, I know that he's had a problem with his hip, and like whatever, doctors don't have the time and bandwidth generally for that kind of interaction. So like even just just like having your story together and being like, I read that I really don't want to be on more than one antipsychotic, or that these meds, if I'm on them long term, might give me tardive dyskinesia, and so like I just want to make sure, or for me lithium, like your parathyroid, like, have you ever check the levels, like not every doctor can stay on top of all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I think just
I
being
want
aware of the idea of polypharmacy, because I think
Yeah.
just saying those words to a doctor, I think will light up enough of a light bulb to have them think more carefully about it.
Because
well,
it's a
I
huge
know.
problem with the elderly as well. Not just, it's also a problem with the elderly.
Yes, yes, big problem. That is often referred to as the medication cascade. And
Mm,
for the elderly, it tends to be, you know, like a lot of different meds and side effects and kind of like marching on in different directions and making sure that they don't interact. With polypharmacy for mental health, it is often like it kind of builds on itself, like being on 3 different medications for your mood disorder, and then maybe putting something else on it for anxiety. And so it's kind of like kind of mushing the same issue with different medications. Do you
mm,
see?
mhm.
Um, one other thing about grad school and how this is coming together for me as a all these different things is that I'm doing an independent study. I'm just getting this together. Um, Alex, I think I talked about this with you a little bit um, on 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 comics as like, well, I'm thinking of it as narrative therapy. I don't know that that fits exactly. I'm going to be doing a lot more research because now, MK, I'm sure that as a teacher, you know, and teaching graphic medicine, that often people in your class will come up with things that are really personal. You know, like I've had, you know, like with one student who's like, oh, she's dealing with her dailies about her husband that had just died 3 months previous. And so her stuff was very, like, there was a lot of stuff in the rain, and, you know, like she was working through a lot of stuff. And we really, like, wow, that's a lot. Thanks for trusting us. You
Mm,
know, like, but that wasn't part of the class. But what if it
mm.
could be? Like,
Yeah.
what if I teach metaphors, and what does that feel like? And that would be a part of like a group. It's like a how to make comics group, but it's also kind of like group therapy, where
Mm,
everybody could support each other. And also as individual therapy, maybe. I know, like I've had with my coaching clients, I've had them do different ways of doing portraits of themselves, annotated portraits, maybe that
mm,
kind of combines some of the aspects of comics and combining words and pictures and creating characters and stuff. So so so
Yeah.
it's related to art therapy, but it's not art therapy. It's yeah, it's
It's something new. It's something new. I mean,
graphic
because
narrative
yeah.
therapy,
yeah,
maybe. I don't
it's
know.
very rich. Yeah, I mean, and also like there's a great like kind of what you're thinking of reminding me of the way that in sociology, I think it's sociology or anthropology, they use body maps, right? And the history of
Mhm.
body maps, like kind of saying the self-portrait, similar thing. There's a lot of things in there that are, so there's this field called narrative medicine, right? And
Mhm.
in it, Rita Sharon talks a lot about the goal isn't therapy, but the process may be therapeutic, right? And
Mhm.
I love that because like I'm teaching medical schools. I'm not there. I'm teaching medical students. I'm not there to be their therapist, but I had this medical student once make a comic that was about like, yeah, I'm dealing with my mother is dying while I'm in med school. But basically then she's like, yeah, that's a thing that's happening that I'm dealing with. But like we're all going through a lot of stuff. Let's stop pretending it's not happening while
Mhm.
we go through this. And let's start attending to one another while we're living our daily lives and paying attention to what's really happening. So I think like that's kind of a lot of the heart of what you're talking about there is like, let's figure out ways to attend to, and what are the tools that graphic medicine brings to allow us to,
Mhm.
because like you
Yeah. I
said,
mean,
go ahead.
I think what's exciting about, to contrast that, it's like, what if the goal is therapy?
Mm,
So it's like, so we're drawing comics and the goal is therapy because you're working with a therapist who's a
right,
cartoonist.
right,
It's amazing. It's
right.
amazing.
Exactly, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Cool. All right. It's very exciting. I can't wait to see what else you produce in the next year as well as afterwards related to this as well. That's really awesome.
And please feel free
Yeah.
to reach out and share anything that you're coming up with and that you decide to post to your website. So just reach out to us and say, hey, here, I just posted this amazing thing I just did. You know, it's not my book, but it's like this handout. Like, I didn't know about this was already on your website. Like, let us know. And we're
Right,
happy.
right. Yeah, like that's one of the things about grad school too, is the bubble.
Yeah, you just
Like I
move
was
on.
just telling you about these different things that I'm doing. Oh, I'm giving a talk, I'm doing the thing, and and like in my introduction, I neglected to even mention this.
So speaking of which,
Anyway,
yes, what are you working on now, and what do you have coming up, and what would you like to plug?
so so right now I'm working on grad school. But I am going to I'm going to be doing, like starting to put together, like if I get some comics together for my other classes too. I mean, this was a comic that I did with the assignment was, like social advocacy. Everybody gave a talk and I did a comic. So I'll let you know if I do that. So I have I guess a couple things. I'm going to be the keynote speaker for a bipolar research lecture series. That's a big honor, and it's a really well respected research program in Michigan at the University of Michigan, and that's going to be on Wednesday, October 22. It's live and virtual, and it's free, so you just have to register.
Do you have a registration link that we can share?
I do have a
Great.
registration link
In the show notes.
elsewhere, right? On December 5th, Friday, December 5th, with SAW, they have um, the sequential art workshops. I'm going to be doing a workshop Friday, December 5. That will be me. And Tom and I just suggested that it's fire and things on fire. And there is how to draw fire in Adventures of You. And so we'll be applying that. And then I have some other dates for readings and presentations of adventures and all that stuff.
Great.
And then, do you know where can we get this book?
Oh, you can get that book wherever books are sold. I mean,
Cool.
it's at my local the bookstore. You can get it on Amazon. Oh, do you know what? I wanted to add something. So MK, I know that I hope this isn't running like super too long. Okay. You're a teacher. I'm a teacher. This book is has a lot of worksheets in it that that will be really useful for teachers. And and I used it this past summer, and I printed out a bunch of the worksheets for my students. And I know that teachers are going to copy pages out of it and hand it out to their students. And you're not allowed, but I know it's gonna, I mean, like, you're a teacher. You're gonna, like, you're not gonna make your students each buy one of these books. And just be realistic. So it was a last minute thing, like, can we have the title running across the bottom? And it was just too late. So my ask is for teachers who are like, oh, I can use this in my class. I know you're going to copy. I understand. Just please let your students know where it comes from.
Cite your source. Absolutely.
Cite your
1000%.
source.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I think that's great. Yeah. I mean, yeah, always. Yeah.
But it's not necessarily intuitive for
Right.
everyone.
Right.
I know that in like marbles, the carousel I have, it's probably my most reproduced image. It's
Yes,
a
it is.
carousel with the horses going up and down in different ways to show different mood states in bipolar disorder. there again, visual metaphor that works a lot for explaining to people. And I know that it is in a lot of PowerPoint presentations.
Right.
And I showed that to someone who was I was introducing myself, and he's like, "Oh, I've seen that." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, I've seen, and he had no idea that it was mine. It didn't occur to him too, like, I didn't know that was yours. His reaction was just, "Oh, yeah, I've seen that." And so I think that not everyone has the sense that if you do a citation, it's not just giving credit, it's allowing that person who really likes it to find more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, in kind of navigating, the medical world and things like that as well, I feel like among medical conferences, there's a lot of emphasis on citing like data and studies, but images, a lot of times it's just like, yeah, I Googled an image, just put it up.
I found this on, yeah.
There's
Right.
like, there's not that same level of rigorousness, which is very odd, but yeah, that happens all the
But
time. I
it's
can
true.
see how it would happen with that image with kind of healthcare providers.
Mm-hmm. Me too. I mean, I
Don't
didn't
do
think, I don't think that people are evil doing that. It's just sort of like not thinking about those two things, giving credit where credit is due. Yeah, all right. Whatever. I don't mean to make light of that, but also to be able to find more. Wow, if you really like that, then you should check out Marbles,
I got this
right?
book.
For example. Yeah.
Well, great. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a final segment that we want to do before we wrap up today. And that was, with your book, a lot of it made us think about kind of comics when we were kids and, what kind of comics were we inspired by or reading when we were younger, even the first ones that really connected with us. So instead of talking about what we're reading, we wanted to actually talk about what we read, meaning like,
Mm-hmm.
what were the comics or whatever that inspired you as an artist, a cartoonist, a creator that you can recall.
Mm-hmm.
So who wants to go first? If you have one to go, you can. Yeah, let's.
I have Peanuts. I think it's just like the easiest, biggest answer.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I grabbed one
They
of.
have
Do
a
you remember these
partnership.
like little
Oh
the
yeah.
Oh, I
yeah
hate
the
these.
little yeah.
Yes.
There is one. I'm only just going to. There's this one storyline about arm wrestling and how Lucy was like the arm wrestling champ, and her challenger that wound up being
Oh my God, I love it.
tough challenger was Snoopy. I was big on arm wrestling, and look at them struggling.
Oh, that's great. Look at that. Emanata.
Oh yeah, there you
Fabulous.
go.
Where is it? Oh, come on.
That's great.
It's not focusing. It's amazing. You can tell that it's amazing. Anyway, so I was hoping that the camera would. Anyway, so that I'm also going to do a really quick. Alex, you said that you might do also the things that we're reading now.
Oh yes, let's do it.
Can I do it? Can I do a
yes,
quick?
Please. Yes.
So I just grabbed everything that was next to my bedside. So Feeding Ghosts by Tessa Hulse. She's a friend of mine. It's this amazing book about the three generations, her mother and her grandmother. There's a lot about mental health in here too. It's beautiful. It just won a Pulitzer as well. The Cartoonist Club is I think an important one for thinking about the adventures of you and who might appeal. Raina Telgemeier, just an incredibly talented and like hilariously popular cartoonist, and Scott McCloud, who we were just talking about, who did Understanding Comics, and this is basically Understanding Comics for kids.
Yeah, which is great. Yeah, that's
awesome.
great.
And so those two books would be perfect to give a kid for Christmas or whatever, to Hanukkah, whatever holiday in the holiday season that you. And Spent, which is Alison Bechdel's most recent book, which is beautiful. I'm just gonna flash those things. And then Underworld, this is it. This is the last one. Underworld, which is Kaz He is one of my favorite cartoonists. Uh, you can just see. I'm sorry, I'm going to give it to you to read, but I go through periods where I read just like a page or two before going to sleep.
Hmm.
They're funny and very dark. It's like really dark sense of humor, but goofy and dark. And I find it comforting. That's what's on my bedside. And I would say that Peanuts is probably one
Great.
of my
Those will
biggest
all be in the
influences.
show notes as
They
well
would
for
all be in
everyone
the
to
show
see.
notes. Yeah.
Excellent.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's what's fascinating too, as you're talking about Peanuts is like, it's so interesting how like, and I guess this is like a generational thing, or but maybe spans generations of like a certain storyline of Peanuts sticks with you. Like that arm wrestling thing is so specific, and it's stuck with you like all these years. Isn't that fascinating? Like I have
Mm-hmm.
one around. There was this quick thing where Charlie Brown made this offhand remark that Snoopy was a dime, a dog like Snoopy is a dime a dozen. And then Snoopy, like for a bunch of strips, perseverated on that, like dime a
Mm-hmm.
dozen, like mulled it and
Uh-huh.
was mad. And then like just walked up to Charlie Brown, kicked him and walked away. And like that was the end of the narrative arc. That stuck with me because I'm an adopted kid, right? And so like there was
Right.
this weird resonance, and so like to the point where when some friends and I were at the Charles Schultz Museum in Santa Rosa, I like went into the library to try to find that, and then Brian Feast actually found that actual thing, so I
Oh,
could
really?
in a book for
Wow.
coming up because I couldn't find it in any of those little pamphlet-y ones you had. But like, so I've never talked with anyone about, and I'm curious if any of our listeners want to respond of like a particular, if you, Peanuts were so influential, if you had this particular storyline that still sort of is like living in your head, it's fascinating. And then what is that, right? Like why? Like, is it about
Right.
whatever? Yeah.
Well, you I if you teach I don't know college students, and you just said it's a generational thing. I'm not sure this is what you were referring to, but the youth don't like Peanuts. They because it's so morose and depressing, and I know like my peers were like, "What are you talking about?" And it's actually like Charlie Brown just gets the short end of the stick over and over. Like he's depressed, and there's like Krabby, and there's just a lot of heaviness, you know, or heaviness. I guess there, right? It's
Reality?
depressing. Is
Yeah.
Reality?
I mean,
Well,
I think,
I I
when
love
you're,
it, and I never like interpreted that way until my students
Interesting.
started saying, like that like they didn't know what, I don't know, my generation liked about it so much or loved about it, because it's so depressing. That's how you would, like, in a nutshell, depressing. I was
yeah,
like,
I mean, I think also like when you would look at it like in contrast to like the other comics around it, it also was kind of like different than like a simple like gag a day strip because it
mm-hmm.
just was more like emotional complexity and depth and it just kind of like, yeah, ambivalence, like kind of
Yeah.
Right,
sad
right.
Yeah.
vibes at
Right.
times.
And this ties into the question. So this is a perfect segue to what I was going to talk about is like the if it's okay for me to go into what my childhood comic was,
Please.
was High and Lois. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I like high, I loved I was a newspaper strips person. And then to underground. I did not come through superheroes to comics, whatever. And so like I read but this ties to what we were talking about was High and Lois was this perfect family that never changed, right? And so many and heteronormative, right? Like, and one of the things I say that with comics, and I say this, we were talking about me not being good at promotion in my new book, is that the one place I found myself as a young person was oddly in High and Lois, because my aunt told me that I looked like baby Trixie when they brought me home from the orphanage, and I actually have an image of that in my book.
Oh,
I really did look
wow.
like baby Trixie, and that's like the age
Uh-huh.
my parents met me. But so that was the character I found resonance with. But then,
Yeah.
like looking at that as an adult, critiquing it and realizing, like, and I actually found a citation where an academic writes about like what kind of teaching was meant to be happening. So in the next panel, I sort of dissect a cover where it's like, okay, the males are
Mm,
leisure activities and the females are serving the males or practicing to serve the males, right? Like,
mm-hmm.
what it was trying to do, interestingly. So anyway, I've gone off on a tangent, but what I was trying to point out is the contrast between the traditional comics on the page and what you might find in Peanuts, right? Which is, yeah, I'm struggling, I'm mad, I'm depressed. Yeah, and I
Right.
maybe that's why it spoke to some of us because we were looking to find reality in comics, right?
Well, I think
Yeah.
to a lot of us, maybe I don't know, maybe that's a whole paper in itself, like what comics appeal to different generations, like that's a whole other conversation, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, I think, with my selection, it's almost kind of a contrast to that because I also, like MK, I was very much a newspaper strip, reader. And I think when I was a kid, that was in my mind. I was like, I want when I grow up, I want to be a newspaper comic strip cartoonist, which, like, thank God, because newspapers barely exist anymore. But I think that that's in my mind kind of what I really connected with, and that's what I read the most. And for me, probably with most humans on Earth, it was Calvin and Hobbes was the comic I connected with the most. And part of what I loved about it was, one, even when I was younger, reading it, I was so blown away by the art style that I couldn't
mhm.
even like imagine how those images were made. I didn't get, how you could draw with a brush or any of those things. So I couldn't even understand how the line work was even made. It just seemed like magical, especially in contrast to the comics around it. But then for me, what I loved most about it was like the elaborate fantasy world that Calvin would enter, where when he would
Yeah,
like imagine something, it would become like photorealistic dinosaurs flying accurate fighter jets and like the stuff you could never imagine. But then as a kid, it's like, yeah, I lived in my head a lot and I lived, imagining a lot of things. So seeing that it could be reproduced on the page was like so mind blowing to me that was one thing that yeah, that was the one I connected with the most probably as a kid.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. One of the links or one of the citations that you should list at the end is the Calvin and Hobbes 10th anniversary book. Alex, are you familiar?
Oh yeah, I have it
It
on my
it
shelf right there. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that is
Amazing.
so dog-eared for me. It
Yes.
has his story, the development of the characters, as well as the in the introduction and then like little notes of his all
Yeah.
through the book.
Because so Bill Watterson, I always call him like the J.D. Salinger of comics, where he just kind of
Hmm.
was like, very elusive, and there's so little writing from him about his creative process. And in that book, he talks about like, this is the paper I use, this is like and it's amazing. And yeah, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of just insight that's so precious for something like that. Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
really cool. Oh, now I want to read that again. Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
funny, but MK High and Lois was on my list, with my short list of influences too, because I remember loving that comic too.
Is that right? I was a Sunday comics reader. I think not a daily comics reader, but I remember when I was really little, we used to go to the Unitarian Society. It was this really progressive kind of Unitarian, and I remember being in the car waiting for my parents to be done drinking coffee and talking, and with the Sunday paper, and like the smell of the and like all the Wizard of Id and like all of
Yeah.
those, Beetle Bailey and like all of those things. I read all of them. Of course, I read all of them. But I think like I'm still sticking with Peanuts, but like all of those things
Oh
were
yeah.
really important to me
But if
too.
you gone back to look at Beetle Bailey, it's unbelievably sexist and horrible. Like if you told me the young people hated Beetle Bailey, I'd be like, "Yo, yeah, I agree with that completely." It's like it's not good.
Yeah,
But interesting. So then this take me down a rabbit hole. It's like these comics are still being made, but we don't know really. Like so, High and Lois has been going since
Yeah.
1954, and there were two creators, and the sons of those creators are still making High and Lois, and the characters still haven't aged, which is really interesting. I need to go deeper down to see like if the storyline has evolved over time, like what does domestic
where
look like?
where are
Um,
they published?
on something called Comics Kingdom, I think is where they're published. Or no, yeah. So anyway, so just Google around, Google High and Lois, and it's like a rabbit hole to go down, which is very interesting.
Hmm.
Or any
Yeah.
of the ones
It's
you loved as a kid. I recommend this to our listeners as well. Just go down a rabbit hole of like, where is it now?
it is very odd that there's a lot of those like legacy comics where like the children continue to like, are they drawing them, or it's just so odd that
Family
there's many.
Circle. Yeah, Family
Yeah,
Circle, the son took over.
I
Yeah.
think Hagar
Is
the
the family circle
Horrible.
still
Yeah,
circling?
yeah.
Wait, and Hagar the Horrible still going?
Well, I just remember that like Offspring had continued it.
Yeah.
I just remember like it was like the same last name. Maybe not now, but
This is a
yeah.
great rabbit hole to go down. Yeah.
Yeah. But then it's also like, are they actually drawing it, or is this some kind of weird like licensing thing where their name
Oh,
is on it and
interesting.
there's
Yeah.
like a,
Uh,
factory of people just reproducing it? I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. 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 That's great.
Fascinating. All right. Well, this has been a great conversation. We probably should wrap up. Yeah.
what a pleasure to talk with both of you. This was really, really awesome
So
way
fun.
to start out my day.
Oh, thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, yeah. I love geeking out about comics.
Yes. And it could go on forever. And thank you for
Yeah.
joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
once again, everyone pick up a copy of this book. It is so amazing. I think it's yeah, I can't wait to, I'm actually like I've already primed my kids to start working on it. So we're gonna go through it.
Yeah. That's
People
great.
people have sent me photos of their kids working on it, and actually my niece, who is in her late 20s, is sending me photos of her work that she's done, like the faces she's drawn and the characters she's
Oh
drawn.
yeah.
So yeah,
So one
it's
thing.
not for ages 9 to 99.
Absolutely. One thing like with my kids who are like, fully like digital, video game children, it's like the faces part. It's like, oh, this is like designing a character on the Wii, on like your computer. It's like it's the same idea. And it's like, oh, but you can draw it and then you are doing it yourself on paper. That's so much more fun.
Mm,
It's kids.
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Great.
That's another whole discussion, right? Drawing
know.
digitally versus, I have some strong feelings about that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank
Let's
you
do it.
very much. We really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, and I look forward to keeping in touch and letting you know and share with the other things that I'm up to, I guess.
All right.
All right. Take good care.
You too.